Like a palimpsest or a photograph with multiple exposures, bone can be quite complicated to interpret, but development in the analytic method and scientific technique allowed what is inscribed there to come increasingly into focus. Snow presents his skull, as I already said, as witnesses rather than as evidence. You know, the difference between an evidence and a witness. The witness is interrogated or cross-interrogated, while an evidence is presented. Right? But the skull in itself is a kind of thing from which the trace of the subject, kind of object from which the trace of the subject cannot be fully removed, still haunts it. I was yesterday speaking about Benjamin and kind of like his, in his book about German Baroque tragic drama, which is his PhD, which is completely dedicated to skulls. He's speaking about the simultaneity of expressionless and expression. He's speaking of the grin of all skulls. It's kind of like ironic grin. Skulls look back onto culture. In the history of osteobiography in the service of war crime investigation, there is a scene that is rarely discussed. It has, however, been described in a book by Christopher Joyce and Eric Stover called Witnesses from the Grave, a book more or less about Clyde Snow. The crucial hinge in the book, a 3-chapter in the middle, dealing with the exhumation and identification of the remains of a skeleton suspected to be that of Joseph Mengele in Brazil in 1985. It is around a specific investigation that the new science of forensic identification of human remains will, quote, Snow's quote, will receive its methodological foundations. The mid-1980s saw what amounted to a last-ditch effort by various governments, as well by a range of other organizations like the Simon Wiesenthal Center, to track down and capture those former Nazi leaders who remained alive and conduct a trial. And you know that there is one paradigmatic Nazi trial that took place in Israel in 1961, and that is of a Nazi criminal called Adolf Eichmann, who was participating in the transfer of Jews and others to death camps. And the Eichmann trial, I mentioned before, the era of the witness, by scholars of testimony and trauma, are conceived as the birth of the era of the witness. Because whereas in the Nuremberg trial, the prosecutor, Jackson, does not allow survivors to enter the court, he thinks that their faults of memory, in fact, something which is augmented by the traumatic nature of their experience, will become a liability to the prosecution. So we convict whoever is convicted in Nuremberg on the basis of documents. The Allies found millions of documents. It's enough. In Israel, however, in 1961, the aim of the prosecutor, Gideon Hausner, is different. He wants to create a kind of a trial that its aim is not only to convict Eichmann, as Arndt correctly conveyed in the book on Eichmann and Jerusalem, called The Banality of Evil, but to create a giant spectacle where the victims themselves, the nation of the victims, judge the perpetrator. Therefore, they enter for the first time survivors or the victim as a witness, something that could be beautifully seen in the film and in later analysis by Israeli filmmaker Eyal Weizman, into the court. What happened, though, is quite interesting, because the victims as witnesses are never your classic reliable witness, right? They are very emotional. They forget. Their voice is fragile. Some of them faint during the testimony itself. Now, the era of the witness, the term that was suggested by scholar, literary scholar, philosopher Shoshana Feldman, together with Eyal, is that in fact it is the frailty of the testimony itself what makes it, quote unquote, less reliable in the trial. That is, in fact, the strength of that testimony. So there's a famous case where the witness cannot remember how many chimneys were in Auschwitz, right? And I think there's a mistake. It's supposed to be 2 and the person remembers 3. But exactly in that mistake, she read the point where trauma is registered, in its unfaithfulness to truth, the objective truth, the truth of the event is registered. So that is the kind of thing that is proposed again with the Mengele trial. In fact, when Israeli Mossad agent came to Buenos Aires in the 60s, their order was to catch both Mengele and Eichmann and bring them together on the same flight to Israel. And Ben-Gurion wanted more Mengele, because he would be the more kind of obvious profile of a sadist Nazi perpetrator, rather than Eichmann, who was more bureaucrat. And when they catch Eichmann, to cut a long story short, Mengele managed to free that right away and goes living under his name for himself. So we have like 2 moments. Eichmann went to Jerusalem, trial happened, the whole story of testimony and witnesses begin, and Mengele goes to remain in South America, where he dies in Cali, and another story begins. That of science, the science of identification in the context of war crimes. On the 6th of June 1985, Brazilian police exhumes a body. The skeleton that emerges becomes the center of a major media event, with journalists invited to accompany the policeman who conducted the investigation. Romeo Tuma, the chief of federal police in Sao Paulo, holding the skull in his hand, showing it to cameras at the gravesite, says, Mengele is now well and truly dead. It's a great disappointment for everybody who wants to see a trial and another opportunity for survivors to speak. But obviously, this statement was immediately contested. Because of the difficulty in high stakes of this identification, Mengele was the last remaining Nazi criminal of any significance still at large, and his death would effectively put an end to the era of Holocaust trials. Leading forensic analysts from several countries convened on the Medical Legal Institute lab in Sao Paulo. And they were, in fact, the best at the time. The most prominent American pathologists, prominent German pathologists, Brazilian pathologists, some Israelis, gathered there with the task of reading the bones and ascertaining whether they are those of Joseph Mengele. So every bone was x-rayed and no skeleton has been looked at so closely before. So again, we are in that sort of idea of the osteobiography, in which a lifeline, a series of events and incidents and movement, person absolute certainty was beyond the capacity of these scientists. Forensic anthropology, like any other empirical science, is a matter of probability. Every scientific article will include a note as to the balance of probability or the margin of error of its finding. The different questions asked of an experiment conducted on the skeleton were akin to a process of a peer review, in which each interpretation increases or decreases the balance of probability. Peer review here in the scientific protocol operates like the trial of the bones. It's a kind of trial in which the verdict is not guilty. Not guilty, but it's Mengele or not Mengele, dead or alive, right? Trial of science. What is probability? Probability is generally understood as the measure of a likelihood that an event will or has occurred, but, as Ian Hacking has pointed out, the term has both subjective and objective meanings. These meanings register something of the difference and tension between human testimony and material evidence. Subjective probability has to do, Hacking explains, with evaluating the authority of witnesses, traditionally by social status, nobility, or wealth. In this sense, the term probable means something like credible or provable, appealing to authority or consensus. Thus, as the 18th century was about to close, Hacking notes that Edward Gibbon would still write in the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire that such a fact is probable, but undoubtedly false. Probable. This is a measure of the authority person, not of the subject, not of the object. Objective probability, on the other hand, relates to the properties of the object or phenomena under analysis. Starting in the middle of the 17th century, according to Hacking, the second meaning of the term is not displacing the first, a probability move from the subject to the object. In forensic matters, though, the two are continuously intertwined and entangled, since no object presents itself without an expert. So, we are talking about the probability of the phenomena as registered in the object as conveyed by the probability of the forensic scientist, how credible that person is. So, as we said, we have that relation between the object, the mediator, and the forum. Because the object and its interpreter constitute a single entangled rhetorical unit, to refute the forensic statement it is necessary to dismantle this mechanism of articulation, which means to show that the object is inauthentic, or that the interpreter is biased, or that the communication between them is short-circuited, that they do not speak the same language, or indeed the object does not speak to the form at all. Now, I think that there's something of subjective probability that still haunts the object, that through probability the object escapes its full submission to determination. And that is happen with that movement of the term probability from a subjective to objective sense. For scientists, and equally for lawyers, truth is measured as a position on a scale of probability. Terms such as balances of probability or beyond reasonable doubt refer to decisions that relate to calculus of probability. So we hang people when we hang them on a balance of beyond reasonable doubt, simply probability balance. Whereas science can simply note the measure of probability or its margin of error, law must render its judgment on the basis of this relative uncertainty or fuzziness. Decision in law and politics, decision, what makes law and politics what they are, the necessity for decision, cannot but be